I'm going to talk a wee bit about our makerspace, and I now have massive makerspace envy. And our space is not the same, but it's important to us. So, yes, I'm going to move, I think. So thank you very much for the invitation to speak today. I should make it clear that I am speaking on behalf of a whole set of people in our library service who've worked incredibly hard to bring this project to fruition. Any positives or information that you take from them, it's their success and their hard work. Lots going on today, and really interesting that there are lots of themes coming out around digital participation and inclusion and reducing inequalities, and that's very much underpins some of the work today that I'm going to talk about. So, not just 3D printing, not just books, not just internet, not just information, it's not me, it's you. I feel like we say this all the time about libraries. We're always explaining what we do and the breadth and scale of what we do. However, libraries are some of the most forward-thinking, provocative and interesting services in the public sector, and I think we've heard lots of that already today. I believe we exist to support equality of opportunity and learning, democratising access to knowledge and information for generations. Like all of you here today, we have been debating what this means for us and our services in the context of some of the fastest societal change since the Industrial Revolution. What does access to information, knowledge and learning mean in 2020? What will it mean in 2030 and beyond? That discussion for us continues, and it's good to hear that that debate is happening elsewhere around the world. But it's led in part to our version of a makerspace and our approach to trying to democratise access, if you like, to some of this amazing digital technology. So where are we? For those of you from other parts of the country, we're right in the heart of Scotland. We are, as has been said, one of the new breeds of cultural trusts before Barclay Review came along and put a spanner in the works. We launched in 2016. We provide library, archive, museum, gallery services, and importantly, we also work to support the creative industry sector, and particular visual artists and makers. Perth and Kinross, as you can see, sits in the heart of Scotland. It is the 5th largest local authority in Scotland and the 8th most rural. We have a population of just over 151,000, spread over 5,500 square kilometres. That's a population density of just 29 people per square kilometre. And to put that in some sort of context, my colleagues from Fife are around 281, and those from Dundee, it's about 2,500, some of our neighbouring authorities. So one of our greatest challenges is how do we make sure that our services are accessible when many of our communities are not very accessible. And that, again, it's thinking about digital connectivity. How do we make them very accessible in that way? So we had 3 really key drivers. These are our key strategic objectives. All of these are interlinked. All of them will be probably quite familiar and quite similar to what you'll have ourselves. But digital participation is really at the heart of that for us. We've been signed up as a digital participation signatory for nearly 3 years now. We're involved as part of the Digital Unite, Digital Champions Network, and really supporting digital skills in our libraries for many, many years now. The second key factor for us was the result of a fairness commission that was held in Perth and Kinross in 2017 that was looking at all aspects of inequalities in the region. This identified that 20% of our households had no internet access in the home, impacting on their connectedness with services, employment opportunities, and compounding in particular issues of rural isolation, where the lack of even access to a reasonable broadband speed, if you can afford it, is a luxury. And free Wi-Fi hotspots are mythical beasts. Nobody knows what they are. The third factor for us in developing the project was our contact with these many small and micro businesses in the creative industries, artists and makers who had chosen to live in the area or had developed their business in the area because of the beautiful countryside and the space and the quality of life, but actually felt very isolated, and there were very few opportunities for them to network and connect with others, and also to develop their practice and collaborate or have access to new tools to support their work. Bringing all of that together, we realised that actually providing a bit more of a comprehensive service, which we could also link in with our existing digital skills initiatives, our code clubs, and we knew an increasing appetite for coding amongst an adult population. We started to look towards our first makerspace. And I'm going to say this film hopefully will work for you. It may not. No? It may take a while to load. But in terms of reviewing the practice from elsewhere, we had a look at a lot of makerspace provision, a lot of activity that was happening in North America, but we also used the resources that we were being spoken about just now, that DCMS and the Libraries Engage project and other projects have created about makerspaces and the development of makerspaces. Go back one. Within this. We wanted to make sure that we could create a space and trial a space which was going to be fully accessible. So we chose to have this in an open area of our library at the AK Bell. We wanted it to be a space that everybody could see. It was transparent. There were no walls. We have some shelving up with books and resources so we could bring things out. But we wanted to make it something which was truly just available for people. We've also worked to create a digital makerspace community. That's a big part of what we wanted to do with our makerspace, was to make sure that it was somewhere where people supported each other, where they shared their learning, they shared their skills, and in a way that's part of us being self-sufficient. Rather than having to staff it constantly, having people on hand all the time, using people to share their skills and connect was a very important part of the project. However, we always knew that a model that centralised a service in our library in Perth was not going to address the rural issues that we had, where some communities are a 2-hour drive away from that library and that facility. I'll try again. Don't think we're going to get refilmed, sorry. They're very good. Robot Wars. So our makerspaces are digital, so we don't have fabrication facilities, much as I now desperately want some. Each space, as I've said, is in the middle of a library, and we found that people have been drawn towards the space because it deliberately looks very different. I'll show you some pictures in a moment, but why we've chosen to make it look very different. We've got a really good range of equipment and resources: iMacs, an HP Sprout, 3D scanners, wide format plotter, a decal printer, document scanners, Tinkercad, Mesh Maker, Lego Mindstorms, photography and animation studio, podcast studio, coding and programming equipment, including Raspberry Pi, Arduino, and well, you kind of get the idea, there's just loads of stuff. However, all of our choices around equipment and resources have been made to provide the greatest degree of flexibility, and we can move equipment around beyond this space if we want to take it out to other libraries, if we want to have taster sessions or drop-in sessions as well. Very importantly, we have the full Adobe Creative Cloud package, and I think that's just a fundamental must. For an individual, that can cost up to £50 a month, which means that having free access to the whole suite is very attractive to businesses, freelancers, as well as those who are starting to explore the possibilities of this type of software themselves. Access and equipment is booked via net loan, so we've added it as though you're booking a People's Network session. You can do that therefore online before you come in, know that the equipment that you want is available, and there you can have up to 3 hours at a time in the space and extend that depending on availability. All of our equipment, like Donatus, is free to access, and that's really important for us because this is about equality of access to these resources. So we don't want to impose a charge. However, we do charge for 3D printing. It's £1 an hour for a print, which is pretty low cost, just about cost recovery. And almost all programmes will tell you how long your object is going to take to print, so there's no hidden surprises for people when they come to printing something off. We do our long prints overnight, so the 3D printer is chuntering through when the library's empty, and I, for one, am quite grateful for that. I'm just not sure whether I'm pressing this hard enough. There we go. So in terms of supporting the makerspace, all of our users must attend a really short induction before they can book onto the equipment. They must also be a library member. That induction just lets us to give a very brief explanation of what we have, how they can use that, and some really basic acceptable use policies around that. After that, they can use NetLoan to book. We also encourage people to make use of the many, many tutorials that are available online. There are really excellent resources and free resources that people can use. And we make sure that we also provide a series of workshops and taster sessions. So we've got a series coming up on how to prototype, 3D modelling and printing, how to edit film for social media use, how to make a movie on your smartphone. All of these we open up to members and non-members to sort of encourage people to come and try the facility and engage in that in a positive way. We also use the spaces to host some of our Code Club activities, and we run tech camps for young people during the holidays. So who's using us? Well, many people use the space simply as a touchdown working environment. We've created a different type of space in the library which people feel very comfortable in, and perhaps even holding small ad hoc meetings. However, there are a broad range of users, from jewellery makers who like to prototype new designs before committing to precious metals, a fine art photographer who's in almost daily using the Photoshop package to deliver some commissions of her work. We have an artist who designs for Liberty in London, and she needs a particular format for her work for the silk printers that Liberty use for their scarves and things. We've also got model train enthusiasts whose lovely clubhouse was vandalised, and they are now painstakingly 3D printing accurate recreations of all of the train models and the stations that they had that were damaged. We have people who have used printed off cookie short cutters, biscuit cutters, with special things on them for fundraising. Really simple things. We print oodles of missing jigsaw pieces. That seems to be a great thing. But we've also had people who've come back in and been able to bring back to life faded and damaged photographs of lost relatives or much more historical items for local history. We've also been scanning some of our museum objects, so we use the space internally as well as it being a very public and external space, and that's really enabled us to look at objects for mount making before we have them on display in exhibition. These spaces are very definitely changing the way people work, play, and connect with each other. Many of our users are older. We've got lots of early or late retirees who are embracing new technology and are every bit as inventive with it and as creative as our younger users. Never underestimate that generation's interest in this technology and desire to get to grips with it. Best of all for us is around 32% of users are new library members. They were not coming into the library for any other reason, but now they're in, they borrow books. They make use of other library services. They're in the cafe. They're part of our library community. And that's been a great bonus for us. So we had a model. We knew it was working for us. It was growing. What we wanted to do, as I say, is take that out into rural communities. And we started to look at new makerspace locations. We have 13 library locations in Perth and Kinross and 3 mobile libraries. Our community campus libraries combine school and public libraries are in frankly vast spaces in new campus buildings, which make them ideal to hold a makerspace. We can target school pupils as well as the wider community. We also looked at Blair Gowrie Library, which is not so vast, but offered a real opportunity to provide a rural town not without its challenges, a really excellent opportunity. One of the great things of this approach across the region is that most people are now no more than a 20 or 25 minute drive to a makerspace as opposed to a 1 to 2 hour drive that they were when we just had one in Perth. Funders. We were really lucky to secure funding to roll out these spaces from the Perth and Kinross Leader programme. That's a government fund designed to support rural services and business development. We also got money from Perth and Kinross Council's economic development team, who recognised the digital skills provision that we could offer through the spaces in rural areas was not something that they would otherwise be able to deliver and would have an impact on the local economy. And we had money from SLIC's Public Library Improvement Fund, which gave us our innovative creative technologist post, more of which in a minute. We put some match funding into that, but the rollout has cost us around £108,000 for equipment, changes to the space, creative technologist, and for 2 digital enablers, which we're just currently in the process of re-advertising for. So within our organisation, we have developed this strong and quite distinct brand portfolio, which is where our contemporary cultural activities fall under: Perthshire Creates, Platform and Makerspace. They're all banded together by this very vibrant orange, which is a bit Marmite for people, but it's a really strong, powerful signal of what people might find in a space when they see that colour. You'll be aware that I am presenting the best side of this project for you, the full houses that we've had at each opening, the overwhelming local support that we've had in each area. However, no project of this scale is without its bumps in the road. Staff nervousness, delays in equipment delivery, the endless detailed paperwork required for the government funding. Use Leader advisedly, I would say. And changes in staffing. We're currently, as I say, recruiting for these 2 new posts, and that has been a bit of a challenge for us in the interim, is making sure that staff are confident enough to support people wanting to use the space before we have a bit more specialist support on site. So meet Bob. Bob is our creative technologist, and Bob is one of these amazing people who has a fantastic mind, a very curious mind. And we were quite clear when we created the makerspaces that we wanted this to have an element which really challenged people and challenged ourselves, challenged our thinking about digital technology, that we weren't just providing equipment, but we were providing real thought-provoking conversations and debate about technology, its role in our lives, what it can do, what it can't do, why we should embrace it and why we should be afraid of it, perhaps. So the money that we received from SLIC, we used to bring in a creative technologist, not without its challenges, because it would appear there's not very many people know what a creative technologist is in Scotland. So we had to advertise a few times to get a really good pool of candidates. And it is a really interesting post. And Bob, when we met him, we knew straight away. Kirsty will talk to you a wee bit later about the project that he's working on at the moment. However, Bob was an artist, is an artist, and he became a bit fascinated by his friend's robot Hoover, and the way that a curious mind often does, he took it apart. And then he decided he'd go off and do an MSc in robotics and machine learning to find out how to put it back together again. And how to reprogram it. And he did. He reprogrammed it to dance. He reprogrammed it to dance with other robots. And actually, the technology required to recognise another robot and interact with that, as opposed to anything else, just blows my head a wee bit, is quite phenomenal. It seems very simple on the outside, but it's very complex. And we wanted to introduce that complexity to the conversations that we were having with communities in the makerspace and about the makerspace. So Bob is working on several projects. Kirsty, as I've said, will cover that in a wee bit more detail. But I can say that it involves a machine learning, literacy, language, and a poet. And is a perfect project in terms of illustrating how you can use really cutting-edge digital technology, programming, coding techniques, and bring them in a really accessible way to a broad library audience. And it's something we're really, really excited about. So for us, the learning, do you know what? It is rocket science. It really is. However, we don't have to be scientists. We're here to give people the opportunity to access technology in the same way we give them the opportunity to access books or maps or resources or local history material. We are enablers, not teachers, not gatekeepers. We're here to provide the conditions for digital creativity, and that's what we're trying to provide with our makerspaces. So if any of you don't have a makerspace, and I'm aware that lots of you do, and lots of you will have different models of doing this, but if you don't and you're thinking of one, a couple of pointers perhaps. Engage your team early. For many, this is a big journey, and it is a cultural change. It's a different way of working. It's a different way of thinking about the offer for our customers and communities. It is about the end user, the person who's coming in. So all the digital geeks in your service will get very excited, get the catalogues out, spend hours researching equipment that nobody has any idea what it is. You have to remember it's all about the user and not just our own excitement around things. Be flexible. Things go wrong. Tech takes time to build for public use. Knowledgeable staff move on. Fail often. It means you're trying new things. Risks are there to be managed, not to stop you trying. Do your research, know your community, know what they'll be interested in, know what they need, and try and provide that. And everything takes longer than you think, particularly the leader paperwork. And I don't want to sound ungrateful for the funding, because I am. However, they could notch it down a bit. And finally, it really isn't just about 3D printing. Thank you.